The ancient Romans are often celebrated for their advancements in law, governance, and engineering, but behind the grandeur of the Roman Empire lay a legal system filled with strange, shocking, and sometimes downright bizarre laws. In this video, we're going to take you on a captivating journey through some of the most peculiar and unbelievable laws of ancient Rome. You might think you know Roman history, but these laws will challenge your perceptions and reveal a side of Rome that is often overlooked. So stay with us until the end as we uncover the strange, the brutal, and the outright bizarre legal codes of ancient Rome, and discover how these laws reflect the values and fears of one of history's greatest civilizations. Adultery was illegal only for married women. In ancient Rome, the concept of adultery was heavily gendered and primarily concerned with the preservation of family lineage and social order. The Lex Iulia de Adulteriis Coercendis, enacted by Emperor Augustus in 18 BCE, was part of a broader set of moral reforms aimed at promoting traditional Roman virtues. According to this law, adultery was a crime, but only if committed by a married woman. The punishment for a woman found guilty of adultery was severe. She could be forced into exile, and her property could be confiscated. The law allowed a woman's husband or father to kill both the woman and her lover if they were caught in the act. In contrast, married men were not subject to the same restrictions. A married man could engage in extramarital affairs with lower status women, such as slaves, prostitutes, or concubines, without facing legal consequences. This double standard was rooted in the patriarchal structure of Roman society, where the male head of the family, known as the paterfamilias, held nearly absolute power over his household. The law's primary concern was to ensure the legitimacy of heirs and to maintain the integrity of the family unit, a cornerstone of Roman social structure. Slaves had no legal rights. The institution of slavery in ancient Rome was both pervasive and brutal. Slaves were considered property, race, rather than persons with rights. This legal status meant that slaves could be bought, sold, punished, or killed at the whim of their owners without any legal repercussions. The legal framework governing slavery was primarily designed to protect the interests of slave owners, ensuring that their investments were secure. One of the most notorious laws related to slavery was the Senatus Consultum Silanianum. Passed in 10 CE, this decree mandated that, if a master was murdered, all of the slaves in the household, regardless of their involvement, were to be executed. The rationale behind this law was to instill fear among slaves and to prevent them from even considering the possibility of harming their masters. The historian Tacitus, in his Annals, records a case where this law was enforced. After the murder of a Roman senator, all 400 of his slaves were executed, sparking public outrage. The lack of legal rights for slaves was also evident in the punishments they could endure. Slaves could be subjected to whipping, branding, or even crucifixion, a particularly brutal form of execution reserved for the most serious offenses. The Roman statesman and Stoic philosopher Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, discusses the harsh treatment of slaves, urging for more humane behavior. Are they slaves? They are men. Are they slaves? They are comrades. Are they slaves? They are humble friends. Abortion and exposure of unwanted children was legal. In ancient Rome, the value of life was often dictated by social and economic circumstances, leading to practices that are shocking by modern standards. Abortion, particularly in the early stages of pregnancy, was a common and legally accepted practice. Roman law did not explicitly prohibit abortion, and it was often seen as a practical solution to unwanted pregnancies, especially in cases where the birth of a child would place an undue burden on the family. The famous Roman physician Soranus, in his Gynecology, provides detailed instructions on how to induce abortion, reflecting the widespread acceptance of the practice. Even more brutal was the practice of expositio, or the exposure of unwanted newborns. This practice involved abandoning infants in remote places, leaving them to die of exposure or be taken in by strangers. Expositio was particularly common among the poor, who could not afford to raise additional children, and among those who had given birth to deformed or otherwise undesirable offspring. The law did not criminalize this practice. In fact, it was seen as a legitimate way to manage family resources, pona cullae. One of the most gruesome and symbolic punishments in Roman law was the pona cullae, a punishment reserved for the crime of parricide, the killing of one's father. The Romans viewed parricide as one of the most heinous crimes, a violation of the natural order and the sacred authority of the paterfamilias. To punish such an act, the Romans devised a ritualistic and terrifying execution method. Under the pona cullae, the condemned person was first whipped and then sewn into a leather sack along with a collection of animals, a dog, a rooster, a viper, and a monkey. Initially, only snakes were included, and the full combination of animals became standard during the reign of Emperor Hadrian in the 2nd century AD. The sack was then thrown into a body of water, where the criminal would drown along with the animals. The inclusion of these specific animals was symbolic, representing chaos, betrayal, and the inversion of natural order. The pona cullae was more than just a method of execution. It was a public spectacle meant to reinforce the sanctity of the family and the power of the paterfamilias. The ritualistic nature of the punishment, with its elaborate symbolism, underscores the deep moral and religious significance that the Romans attached to the crime of parricide. No burial if killed by lightning. Among the strangest laws in ancient Rome was the prohibition against burying those who had been struck by lightning. This law was rooted in the Romans' religious beliefs, particularly their reverence for Jupiter, the king of the gods, who was believed to wield lightning as his weapon. A person struck by lightning was considered to have been touched by the divine, and their body was viewed as sacred and untouchable. The body of a person killed by lightning could not be moved or buried in a traditional manner. Instead, it was to be left where it fell, or in some cases, buried on the spot without any formal rites. The Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder, in his Natural History, explains the bodies of those slain by lightning were not to be removed even by touch from the place where they were struck, for they were believed to have been taken by the gods. By leaving the bodies where they fell, the Romans believed they were respecting the will of Jupiter and avoiding further divine retribution. The legal codes of ancient Rome were a complex tapestry of social norms, religious beliefs, and practical considerations. While some of these laws might seem strange or even barbaric to us today, they made perfect sense within the context of Roman society. As we reflect on these ancient laws, we are reminded of how far we have come in our understanding of justice and human dignity. Yet, these laws also challenge us to think critically about our own legal systems and the ways in which they reflect our values and beliefs. For more intriguing insights into ancient history, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. The journey through history continues, and there's always more to discover.